The King of Navarre and 3 of his lords, Biron, Longueville, and Domaine, all founded an academy together. The king asked the 3 of his lords to sign their names to an oath, swearing their commitment to the academy. 2 of them, Longueville and Domaine, agree, but Biron hesitates and questions the strictness of the oath. The main elements of the oath are to live and study at the academy for 3 years, to fast for an entire day once a week, to sleep for 3 hours each night, to remain unseen during the day, and not to interact with any women. If any of the men break the oath of interacting with women in the 3 years, they will be subject to the worst public shame that the court can think of, losing his tongue. Biron then points out that the daughter of the King of France is set to visit, and if they don't amend the rules, the king himself will be breaking them. After discussing, everyone agrees to sign with the understanding that some rules may be bent out of necessity. The Princess of France arrives with her entourage. She knows that the men have vowed not to be in the presence of women, and she asks to learn more about them. Maria, one of her attendings, had met Longueville at a wedding and was very impressed by him. The king tells the princess that he won't let her visit the court because of the oath the men have taken. Boyet, a French lord that traveled with the princess, tells her that he thinks the king is in love with her. Armado, a Spaniard, sends Costard the Fool to deliver a letter to Jacquinetta, the woman described as having few morals. Biron gives Costard money, so he will deliver a letter to Rosaline as well, one of the princess's attendings. Costard agrees and leaves with both letters. Biron, now alone, laments his love for Rosaline. The French princess and her entourage go on a hunt, and Costard finds them and gives her the letter for Rosaline from Biron. However, he accidentally gives her the letter meant for Jacquinetta. Boyet reads the letter and tells Costard that he delivered the wrong letter. Jacquinetta comes in and asks for the letter to be read to her. 2 men read the letter aloud for everyone to hear and discover that it was the letter meant for Rosaline. They ask Costard to take the letter to Biron. Biron enters with the letter to Rosaline. He hears someone coming and hides. The king enters and begins reading a poem that he's written. Here, Biron learns that the king is also in love. The king hears Longueville entering and also hides, only to hear Longueville reading from a poem he's written about his love for Maria. He hears someone approaching and also hides, only for Domaine to enter pining loudly for Kate, another one of the attending ladies traveling with the Princess of France. Longueville leaves his hiding place to scold Domaine for breaking the vow, which prompts the king to leave his hiding place and announce that he had also heard Longueville professing his love for Maria. After all of this, Biron finally steps forward to announce that he had heard the king professing his own love. Jacquinetta and Costard enter with their letter. Biron reads it, and recognizing it as his own letter written to Rosaline, rips it up into pieces. Domaine picks up the pieces and finds one with Biron's name on it, so Biron finally admits that he too was in love. The 4 men then begin to argue about which of the women is more beautiful. The king realizes that all 4 of the men are in love and have broken their vow. Biron makes a speech in which he says that the vow the men took only distracted them more from their studies. The king agrees, and all of the men decide to pursue the women. Armado, Moth, and Costard all enter, and Armado announces that the king has asked him to set up a show or pageant or firework display in order to entertain the princess and her entourage. He requests the help of the local schoolteacher and minister, and the teacher suggests a show of 9 worthies. All of the men begin discussing who will play the roles of the worthies. The princess and her ladies enter. The princess is showing her ladies a jewel that the king has sent to her. Rosaline tells them of the letter from Biron with verses and a picture of her in it. Catherine has received a letter and a pair of gloves from Domaine, and Maria has received a letter and some pearls from Longueville. Boyet tells the ladies that the king and his men are on their way over dressed as Muscovites, or Russians, to try to woo their prospective loves. The princess tells her ladies to mask themselves and switch favors so the men will be deceived. The men enter, masked and in Russian habits. Rosaline, dressed and acting as the princess, asks what the men want. The king tells her the men want to speak with each woman. Each of the men tries to woo the woman he thinks is the one he loves. Each pair has a separate conversation, and then Rosaline, acting as the princess, tells them it's time for them to leave. The women then discuss the love that each man had pledged and how gullible they all were for believing the women. They realize that the men would be returning soon, so they have to switch their favors back over to their real selves. When the men return, dressed normally, the king offers to bring the women to the court. However, the princess denies him so as not to break the vows that the men took. She then tells him that a group of Russians had visited them recently, and Rosaline complained about what fools the Russians had been. The women revealed that the costumes had not fooled them. The king confesses to have been there in costume, and the princess asks him what he had told his lady. She then asks Rosaline what her Russian had told her, and she repeats back what the king had said. The men realize that a trick was played on them. Costard the Fool enters and asks the king if the worthies should begin their show. Barone tells them to prepare, but the king worries they will be shamed. The princess wants to see the show, and Barone tells him that it really can't get worse at this point. After the show ends, a messenger from France named Marcade enters and announces that the King of France is dead, and the princess is now the queen. The princess wants to leave right away, but the king hopes she doesn't. The princess apologizes for giving the men a hard time, and the king begs her not to abandon their new love. The princess is sensible and replies that it is too early to make a lifelong commitment and challenges the king to spend a year in a monastery. After this, he can come back and try to win her over. The rest of her ladies follow suit and make their men pledge to wait a year before pursuing them. In the end, the play ends with Armado singing songs of spring and winter.